Greetings, I'm Rodger Newbold, and welcome to this episode of the Experienced Photography. I'm so glad to be back with you. My fellow photographer and great editor and collaborator for this episode is Matt Rich. Matt's currently, comfortably seated in the edit room. Are you there, my friend? Let us know. Come on.
Hi, everyone.
Now, the past two episodes that we have been dealing with contained information on tripod legs and how to select a tripod and make a list that would be suitable for your use. Today, we're going to cover tripod heads. Now, the head is the movable part on top of the legs that allows you to hold on to and aim the camera. The head is attached to the tripod legs so it can be of use in action out in the field. The tripod legs come with an attached male screw the size of 3/8 of an inch by 16 threads per inch. And this is very standard and it will mate with almost any tripod head that you purchase. Now, the tripod head has a female thread that has an opening in the bottom, 3/8 by 16, so that the tripod legs can attach to the tripod head. Now, this is really cool, and there's probably going to be some type of set screws or something else in the bottom that face upward to anchor the head and prevent rotation. Now, the head itself may have a detachable mounting plate, and it will contain a 1/4 by 20 thread, 1/4 inch wide by 20 threads per inch, and it's a male stud, and that allows it to fasten into the camera body. Almost all camera bodies contain the standard 1/4 20 tripod mounting screw. Now, we'll discuss detachable mounting plates later in this episode. There are many different types of tripod heads, and it can get a mite confusing on which one to use depending on your shooting style and what you like. I personally like my gear to complement my photography rather than making my job harder or worse than it needs to be. Now, here's a breakdown of some of the most popular tripod heads that you can get a hold of. A ball head. They're a very popular tripod head for photography. The rotating ball lets you position the camera almost in any place imaginable, with a locking screw that finally locks the rotation of the ball into position and gives you the most flexibility how to interact with the camera, to the subject, to you. Now, it can be just a tad finicky and a little bit difficult to get into very fine positions. As you move this for safety reasons, and I don't want you to have a heart attack, support the camera with one hand as you unlock the ball head with the other to keep it from unexpectedly tipping. Matt, if you'll put up figure number 1, we'll take a look at a ball head. Now, this is my ball head. This one happens to be a Really Right Stuff BH55. The thumb release lock on top is the thing that locks the detachable mounting plate onto the ball head itself. Now, that's pretty cool. They make them with a screw type or a thumb release latch. I've gone with the thumb release latch because it's so swift. It's really great. Now, you'll see that there's a green bubble level in there on the head, and that's good for getting it level. The large lock on the side is the ball lock screw. Then there's a smaller tensioning adjustment that adjusts the drag of the lock screw. So when you unlock it, the thing doesn't tilt and fall and scare the living daylights out of you. You can unlock this and have the tension drag set up so it will move more reasonably. It won't scare you. Now, number 2 is the tilt pan head. That comes up with figure 2. These tripod heads have 2 axes that allow you to pan, that will rotation and move around, and also tilt. And they do it independently. With the tilt pan head, this is mine off of one of my tripods. It is the Manfrotto head, and they're really cool because to move the tilt pan head, you have to twist the corresponding long handles to unlock each movement. This makes it so that you can move any position independent of the other, where the ball head, once you unlock it, kind of moves freely everywhere. They do take up more space, and they have more weight than a ball head. But they're easier to make minor and very individual changes. On top of this, instead of a thumb latch lever, this and a mounting plate, this has a hexagonal detachable release plate with the thumb lock lever. There's also a green bubble level that you can see when you get your camera level. Now, most of the new cameras come with some type of built-in level, but this just gives you a place to get it roughed in before you start your work. This head allows for independent movement in any direction, and I did experience a couple of drawbacks. They kind of disappointed me. When the camera's mounted to the hex plate on top, the handle protrudes straight back into my face or throat, and it kind of limited how close I could get to the back of the camera to see through the eyepiece. Now, you can use live view or some other function, and that helps, but at the time I bought this head, live view was not available on the cameras that I had, so I ended up making some modifications I'll tell you about. Number 2, when the tilt the camera straight up and you wanted to do star photography, I always grip onto the camera, unlock it, and then tilt it. It won't go perfectly up and down. It tilts back on an angle of about this much, so I could never see straight up into the stars and sky that I wanted to. It prevented vertical orientation. So my workaround was to reposition the camera on the hex plate. So I undid the little 1/4-20 on the hex plate, turned it so it was 180 degrees out of sync, and then put the hex plate back on top of the tilt pan head, and that way the locking handle, instead of being straight back to me, was straight out this way. Now it would tilt straight up and I could see up into the stars. However, it kind of interfered with my really wide angle lenses. So what I ended up doing was my own modification. I detached the long handle from the head and cut off about half of it and then reattached it so it was much shorter and it wouldn't cause a problem. However, it got by, but it's a workaround, and it shouldn't be that dang tough to use a head like that. Now, number 3 coming up, Matt will show us. This is a geared pan tilt head. The greatest geared version of this is shown here that I think of, and there are many of these around. I know a lot of photographers that use these. The real interesting thing is you get rid of the long handles, and it just has these micro twists that will unlock and lock, and then it will drive the camera up and down or forward and back, but at a real slow pace. Now, some of the newest ones have a quick release on them, so you can get it to a near correct position with any kind of gross movement you want, and then once you lock it, you start using the gears for your micro adjustments. They're a bit more costly, and the thing I found about it was just too slow for me to operate. Now, coming up next is the great pistol grip head. The pistol grip head's very similar to a ball head in that you can move it around and change it to any position you want. It uses kind of like a little joystick. You grip it, you squeeze it, you can move it, you can let go, it locks. And a lot of photographers love this, and they use them because they're easily repositioned, and you don't have to be fumbling with any knobs or locks or arms or anything else. The thing that I came up with is, after buying one and using it for a while, they do loosen over a period of time, unlike my traditional big ball head. And even though they have a tension control adjustment on the hand grip, there are other gripes that I had with this, is that they just keep loosening, and I had a difficult time making that work. And the fact is, they're made for cameras that are relatively light. They hold a maximum of 5 or 6 pounds, and if you have a real heavy camera, it just doesn't work. Now, the next head I'm going to show you is a gimbal head. This is really cool. Most camera heads are not strong enough to hold an enormous, like a 400 2.8 lens, or a 5 or 600, or maybe even like a 200 400 f4. They're big and they're heavy, and so by using the gimbal head, we can work with a lens, and it's commonly used for like wildlife, where you're using these big, huge lenses. It holds it on the center of the tripod, and it gives you a lot of flexibility for up and down and swinging around. It's really not meant to be totally locked down. It just takes the weight and holds the camera and lens in a secure position and allows it to swing on the gimbal whatever way you need it to go. And a gimbal head is really great if you're working with that type of subject matter, birds and in flight, and or really, really big lenses that need help holding the weight. Because once you get it stabilized here or on a single tripod or something, it gets a little tense. Now, next I'm going to show you a fluid head. That's number 5 on our list. The fluid head is essentially a tilt pan head, but it's built specifically for video work. Of course, you can use it for other things, but instead of having friction or gears to operate, the fluid head is filled with a viscous fluid, and it has a small orifice, and when you open the valve, it allows it to move in whichever way you're moving your head, but it does it under a very controlled, slow manner. And that's really great for video because you're not whipping across the field. It has a controlled amount of drag, and the fluid passes through the valve when you're panning and tilting, and you get very, very smooth shots for video. If you're using it for still photography, sometimes I got a little bit upset because of how slow it actually moved. Now I want to talk a little about some etc. This is one thing is a monopod. Now a monopod is not really a tripod. It doesn't have 3 legs, it's mono as in one. But a lot of sports photographers or other people on the run use a monopod. You'll see them often at the on TV on the golf matches, on the football field. It's a single leg and often will have some type of head, or not even necessarily need a head. You screw the camera to the staff and then you hold the staff down into the ground, you plant it, and then you can kind of wobble it wherever you need to do while you are shooting, and the monopod makes it easy to work with. However, don't let go. I've seen a lot of wedding photographers with this, and they forget about it, and all of a sudden you see somebody snatch it as it's in pendulum mode heading straight to the ground. I don't like that, but use it if you need to. It works really well with a 7200 if you're shooting weddings and you're in a church and you need a little bit of break of the weight of all of this. So I've used it with both video and still, and it works fine, but I don't really like it. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about ARCA Swiss. As you're looking for video heads, you're going to hear this name a lot. Now, ARCA Swiss, as I'm talking about right now, is not a tripod head. Yes, they do make tripod heads, and very fine ones. It's also a highly effective and totally reliable plate and receiver system that was invented in the 1990s. And this is a specific size dovetail groove on a plate, which is attached to the camera with the 1/4-20, and I've seen it attach with the rifle scope using the same 1/4-20. They're starting to use it in a lot of things because it has become very popular. The plate then may be slid into a set of matching jaws on your tripod or on your mounting unit, and this is gripped by a tightening screw or the thumb release latch, a type of locking jaws that hold the release plate in there. They've got it as a standard now, ISO 1222:2010. The advantage to this system is that a photographer can mount a lens on a plate and carry that plate or an L bracket, and within seconds, without fumbling around, can change the position of it. With mine, I unlock the thumb lock, slide it out of the groove, tip it up actually for a vertical, and lock the thumb lock again. In 2 seconds, I've changed from horizontal to vertical. That fascinates me. It's fast, it's speedy, it's really great, but I want to remind you, fasten the lock. In my teaching and running workshops and taking people out into the field, I've seen 2 accidents. I don't like this because it makes students very unhappy when their camera bonks off the ground. In most cases, there's an index mark, and once you slide it in and line it up, remember to twist the lock or release the thumb lock, and that will grip it and hold it tight. It's made so both pieces are synchronized and they're repetitive in their positioning. Now let's take a look at item number 7, the ARCA Swiss Style Custom L Bracket. This is what I use. They are specific for your given camera. You purchase one to fit what camera you're using, and then it's really slick to use. It doesn't interfere with any of the microphone adjustments or the card slots. It doesn't interfere with the battery compartment. They've thought this through. They've made it specific to each and every camera. The nice thing is it really works. Now, if you take a regular tilt pan head and you want to tilt it into a vertical position, you undo the knob, you tilt it. Now, as it tilts, it moves off of the middle of the tripod over to the left. Then you tighten it down. Then you move your tripod, and then you get everything realigned and you shoot. Now you want to go back to horizontal, you undo the screw, the release lock, you tilt it back up, now it moves to the right. So you pick up the tripod and you move it again. It's a matter of minutes rather than 2 seconds to flip it. I think the L bracket has changed my work, and it makes changing from horizontal to vertical just so speedy and so swift. There's just no fussing with a tripod head or any problem. It remains centered on the tripod, so you don't have to make any type of correction whatsoever. Now, generally you attach a plate or a bracket to each piece of equipment that you have for rapid use in the field. It seems to be one of the best systems that I've come across, and I use it nearly every day, except when you got COVID and you don't go out that day. The ARCA Swiss style mounting plate, shown in number 8, shown also in figure 9, is the ARCA tripod head with the ARCA Swiss mounting plate on top. So if we can see 8 and 9, we'll see what they contain for us. And Matt will show us those right now. So you end up getting a small plate for each long lens or each lens that you need to mount, or you can get one for your camera. And you use the ARCA Swiss system. It is really the hot thing right now, and it's fast, it's secure, it's great. It is, I can't say enough. Now, I believe we've given you a tremendous amount of information on why you want a tripod, how to make a list of things that you need to see and find and get in your tripod. And now we've given you a choice of a bunch of heads that you can get and that you can use to work with your camera. Now, your local supplier may or may not carry all of these different brands or styles of tripod heads that we've talked about, but I'm going to leave you a short list of different manufacturers, and if you wish, you can go browse their product site. All you have to do, remember, is press the letter K on your keyboard, and that will pause the video. And when doing so, you can see this list. So here is a list that you can take a look at. ARCA Swiss, Really Right Stuff, Kirk Enterprises, Aracatech, Wimberley, Novaflex, Surrey, Sunway Photo, Me Photo, Manfrotto, and Gitzo. That ought to get you somewhere. It ought to give you plenty of a choice of what to use for your camera and tripod to make it all work together smoothly and fast for you. Now, we hope we've given you a lot of information, and a lot of information that is very useful, and hope that you will subscribe to our channel, give us a big thumbs up, show us that you found this information useful and helpful to you. Click the little bell and tinkle it. That will give you a warning when new content comes up. It's a convenience to you. Please continue your comments and ask questions. We love hearing from you, and so I think it's great that it keeps the two-way dialogue between us and you together. So till our next episode, we thank you And so long for now, my friends. We'll see you soon.